Hey there, and welcome back to Animatronic Memories by Ink Stuff over on GameJolt. Animatronic Memories is an alternate retelling of FNAF 1, set in an alternate universe, and you are a security guard monitoring the building. Sounds simple enough. But of course, before we continue, I want to quickly apologize in case I sound a bit funny. I'm fighting a cold right now, so I might sound a bit more nasally than normal. Now, as I mentioned, Animatronic Memories is an alternate retelling of the first FNAF game, but the gameplay is pretty faithful to its roots. In total, you are dealing with 6 animatronics: Freddy, Chica, Bonnie, Foxy, Anne, and Harley the puppet. In the office, you have one door to your right and a window behind you. If you see an animatronic approach your door or window, you must shut them to prevent access. However, you don't have to worry about power management here, at least not in the traditional sense. By the door, there is a fuse box with 3 fuses, which you'll need in order to have power coursing through the building. There is no way to replace these fuses if you happen to lose/break them, and the company continues to postpone fixing the power. One way we can break our fuses is by keeping the door shut for too long. As the door stays shut, a meter starts building up, and once all 4 bars are filled, a fuse will be lost. This reminded me of Five Nights at Candy's power mechanic, where a door's power drain increases as it stays shut for longer periods of time. Only this time, instead of sacrificing more power, it's kinda like you're sacrificing a little life in this case. Now, the only animatronics capable of breaking these fuses are Freddy and the puppet. For Freddy, just keep him out of the office while he's at the door. As for the puppet, he'll always be in the arcade/prize corner camera. If he moves from this camera and static interference appears on your monitor, you must search the cameras, find him, and scare him off before he causes a short circuit, breaking a fuse. If you see him attempting to enter the vent, scare him off with the button prompt on screen. Besides that, Bonnie and Chica will attempt to enter your office through the door, while Foxy and Anne will attempt to enter via the window. In general, Anne will be much faster than Foxy due to his peg leg, so she'll appear at your window more often. However, to combat this, she also has a longer sound cue than Foxy, so you'll still have ample time to shut the door in her face. But of course, that now covers everything gameplay wise, and it's time to hop in to the story of Animatronic Memories. Now, for the most part, our enthusiastic phone gal informs us of the various gameplay mechanics throughout the nights that I spoke of earlier, so I won't be mentioning the phone calls much, if at all. We'll mainly be covering the segments after each night. Now, this game has 2 post-shift segments, the first of which being in the parts and service room where you'll be conducting repairs on an animatronic. However, while you're conducting repairs behind you, there's a scrappy candy clown that was left here a long time ago after an undisclosed incident. While doing repairs, it'll slowly approach you, and in order to prevent any harm, you must use the stun baton in order to repel it. While looking at the corridor behind you, charge the stun baton and use it when the clown is in front of you. You must use it before going back to repairs, or else the stun baton will lose its charge, forcing you to restart the charge the next time you turn around. Now, the first animatronic here that we're repairing is Bonnie, where we'll be repairing the internal electronics behind its faceplate. Now, from what I've seen from all of the different parts and service segments, it doesn't seem like this is actually too important to the story, at least not from what I could tell. This part immediately reminded me once again of another fan game, Five Nights at Maggie's 3, where you are repairing the animatronics while holding off the endo that is constantly attacking you. Once the repairs are done, you prepare to leave the building when a sound lures you into the side room near the exit. This leads us to the minigames that'll take place after each night, and mainly after each parts and service section. Now our first minigame has us playing as Freddy, who's curious to see what his friends are up to. These minigames are tied to the ending that you'll get once you survive all 5 nights. Throughout these minigames, you'll find glitches, which are entrances to secret minigames within the minigame, and playing through all of these secret minigames will allow you to achieve the game's true ending. Of course, since we are doing a story breakdown, it only makes sense to go down the path of the true ending, but we'll cover the game's alternate ending afterwards. The first secret minigame depicts a crying child in a room filled with glitching structures and static. In the room above, you'll find a Freddy plushie, which you must bring to the child. Bringing the plushie to the crying child will end the minigame, and start to show a cutscene depicting a child's day at the pizzeria. The child's final day at the pizzeria, before they were led into a back room by a rabbit mascot and murdered. I can't move. I want to sleep. It hurts. Where am I? I remember. Now, I've said this before in previous story breakdowns, specifically the one for Tales of the Bunnyman, but seeing these depictions of the missing children incident with these kinds of visuals kinds of brings life to the real tragedy behind this game just a little bit more. In the Night 2 minigame, you now play as Bonnie, who's tasked with removing trash around the pizzeria. However, now there's an enemy on the pizzeria grounds, a rogue endoskeleton, which you must avoid at all costs. Of course, unless you're a dumbass like me who thought this glitching endoskeleton was actually the entrance to the secret minigame and actually died. Worst part is about all this, if you die during one of these minigames, you don't get to try it again. You're forced to move on to the next night, locking you out of the true ending, unless you start from scratch, which I ended up doing. Luckily for me, this game's nights flew by, so getting back to this point was a breeze. This time, I learned that the secret entrance would only appear once making progress within the minigames. The entrance is by the kitchen, and this time you must search for a key and open a locked room where another crying child is found. You must then go back to the beginning and grab the Bonnie plushie which has now appeared and bring it to the child. Once you do, another cutscene starts, showing a kid being harassed by a group of bullies. At least until the rabbit comes to save the day. The child thinks they found a new friend as they follow the rabbit into the back room, leading to the child's death. Now this was just cruelty at its finest. The rabbit picked an easy target to kill under the guise of saving him from bullies. I remember. After night 3 in parts and service, we're fixing Freddy, specifically the speaker unit behind his chest plate. And of course, our minigame after this has Chica searching for cake ingredients that were stolen by the rogue endoskeleton. One thing I haven't mentioned yet, by the way, a nice little detail, is that in each minigame you can actually find the rabbit mascot responsible for the children's murders, hiding in some rather peculiar spots. This is also used to confirm that the Spring Bonnie suit is the one being used in these murders. Now the secret entrance for this minigame is in the kitchen, which will depict several large eyeballs tracking your every movement. Once you find the crying child, you must walk over every single eye, which will reveal the Chica plushie. Now this minigame in particular, I think is supposed to symbolize the nature of the child murders. Obviously they're all murdered in the back room where no one can see, but remember, that's not where they all started. The rabbit lured them out in the open, surrounded by watchful eyes, right? Parents, other children. But of course, no one's going to question a child walking off with one of the restaurant's mascots. So I think that's kind of the idea that, in a way, everyone's watching, but at the same time, when it's all said and done, no one really saw what happened to the children. Once you hand the plushie over, we see this kid's inevitable fate. A kid reaching for the Chica plushie in the prize corner when the rabbit mascot appears, and hands it to her in what appears to be behind a door, assumingly the door to the back room, where her life is inevitably taken. I remember. Now on night 4, we get a bit of a mix-up, because if the puppet manages to enter your office through the vents and gets to you, you get a little death cutscene. This kid witnessed what happened. He not only saw the kids being lured into the room, but he saw the murder weapon, but he was noticed. In fear, he runs to the puppet and hides in the present box. Unfortunately, I didn't find any more puppet cutscenes like this even after dying to the puppet once again, so I have to assume that this kid eventually goes on to possess the puppet, considering that this cutscene, this kid's point of view, was triggered by the puppet's jump scare. After night 4, you repair Foxy and play as Anne in a minigame, who goes around decorating the restaurant. Now this secret minigame requires you to adjust these tiles, or boxes, in a specific order, provided by the minigame throughout the various rooms that lead to the crying child. Once you've assembled the correct order, the Anne plush appears in the center of the room. This child found a rabbit while surrounded by other guests and children, similar to what I mentioned about these kids being lured by the rabbit in very public spaces where everyone has their own children but never really notices something going wrong. The rabbit lured them to the back once again, trying to show them something, before their fate has reached a deadly turn once again. I remember. Finally, night 5. We've reached the end of the first week. Now the phone call this time actually mentions that we surprisingly lasted a lot longer than some of the previous guards, who have either switched over to the day shift or quit entirely. Unsurprisingly given our circumstances. The phone gal also says that management has informed her that there's no need for us to come in tomorrow, and someone else will be working the night shift.
By the way, I was asked to tell you something. The management told me to tell you not to come to work tomorrow. They didn't give me specific details as to why, but they said someone else would be with me tomorrow night. So you get home tomorrow and rest. You deserve to have some rest. See you next week. Good luck and good night.
So huzzah! You get a break. After this night, you move straight on to the final minigame. No more parts and service repairs. You're playing as Foxy, who's inviting everyone to Harley's birthday party. Before you get a chance to invite the star guest himself, the minigame glitches and he leaves, which leaves the glitching arcade machine in the room. This final secret minigame has you grabbing every plushie from the previous minigames. Placing all 4 plushies will reveal Foxy's plushie in the middle, and once it's placed in the box, the crying child appears. This child is standing by the carousel when the rabbit calls him over, in arguably the creepiest way possible compared to everyone else. Unfortunately, we know this child's fate will not change, even as they ask the rabbit to stop. I remember. This now takes you to the main menu, where Spring Bonnie, or the birthday rabbit as the game refers to them, is front and center, with night 6 being our next stop. Despite being asked to stay home tonight, you came back. Everything you saw and everything you encountered here kept you awake. Something was calling you back here. And to your surprise, the entrance to the pizzeria was not locked. The building was quiet, most of the lights were off, and there was not a soul in sight. You decided to go to the security office and check if there was anyone on the night shift. But there was no one there either. You decided to start your shift as usual and find out what was going on in the morning. While there, you felt a growing sense of unease and couldn't shake the feeling. That you were being watched. Now this night isn't different from night 5 besides the increased aggression from all the animatronics, probably due to their killer's presence. Now I think it's safe to say that their presence here isn't a coincidence. They happened to show up on the one night we were told not to show up by management. Rather suspicious, I say. I'm guessing the reasoning behind the killer's inactivity is because they expect the animatronics to do their dirty work for them, so they just watch from a distance. Unfortunately for them, we survived this night. And there we have it. The killer is dead, and the spirits are free. Almost all of them. You see, despite all 6 spirits taking a hand in vanquishing their killer, there are only 5 masks on the ground here, and the puppet's mask is the only one missing. Now this is an interesting detail because if there was any spirit that should have found peace, it would have been the puppets. After all, they're the reason this all came to fruition in the first place. They lured you to that arcade machine for one reason: to make the spirits remember what happened to them. This is also backed up by the loading screen prompt, "Don't let them forget." That's why the text "I remember" appeared after witnessing each of their deaths, with the exception of the puppet. That's why after their deaths, we see them looking in the perspective of the animatronics. It's how they knew the man in the rabbit suit was the one responsible, and they were there to get their vengeance. But this doesn't answer why the puppet's mask is absent, as I already mentioned, and we never even saw how the puppet's spirit originally died to begin with. We can only assume it was at the hands of the killer, because what other motivation would they really have? Now, one thing I was thinking about, especially considering we did parts in service with the animatronics, is that the bodies might have been initially stuffed in the suits, but they had to be taken out at some point, because during one of the parts and service segments where we're repairing Freddy, we looked inside that suit, and we definitely would have noticed a body there, which there wasn't. And one blatant issue regarding this character, who I thought was going to be involved in the game's true ending, but ended up doing nothing. Especially after that first message about this clown being left in the parts and service room due to some undisclosed incident, I figured there might have been something there, but in the end, nothing. Not even in the game's bad ending. Speaking of the bad ending, long story short, you play through the entire game again, but without completing any of the secret minigames. If you complete the minigames as quote-unquote intended, just following the objectives given by the minigame, such as talking to friends, picking up trash, etc., you get a distorted score, and you don't really get much else other than that. Of course, you don't have to complete the minigames, you could also just die to the rogue endo, and that'll satisfy the conditions as well. This takes us to night 5, where under these conditions, you get to a different main menu, with these 2 eyes just sitting there on screen, instead of the birthday rabbit. The cutscene leading up to night 6 also changes, where instead of going to the office, you hear a sound by the storage room. Suddenly, a distant sound cut through the silence. You went to check and saw that one of the rooms was open and the light was on. You decided to go there and investigate. There was nobody in the room. The door to the parts service was open, and there were several full garbage bags on the floor. A sharp smell of chemicals hit your nose. Despite your better judgment, clearly, you went to check the contents of one of the bags. A wave of horror passed through your body. You couldn't believe what you were seeing in front of you. Okay, but before you could collect your thoughts, you heard the door creak behind you. And before you could react, a sharp pain shot through your body. In a fit of panic, you begin to resist your attacker, but your strength began to fade. Hold on, your body went limp, the pain began to subside. Your gaze turned to the figure towering over you as your strength left you completely and your mind went dark. Suddenly, you were pulled out of the darkness by the feeling of something's presence. The presence of something sinister. Something that looks deep into your soul. Something that won't let you leave. Now this is quite a mix-up from our previous nights. In this nightmarish hellscape version of our office, the gameplay is tweaked quite a bit. For one, the camera system is now in the form of a cycle, where you can only move to the next or previous camera in the set order. To account for this, there are only 4 cameras now. The shadow will first appear on one of the cameras, which is phase 1. Phase 2 starts when it gets closer to the camera, and your screen slowly starts to be covered by the face of the shadow. You must press the red button while on the shadow's camera, sending the shadow away. As for the masks in front of you, spirits will show up on the left and right monitors wearing one of these 2 masks. You must wear the same mask that they're wearing in order to make them go away. Behind you, you'll have the twin fox spirits attempting to enter through the window, and you must scare them away using the flashlight. Through the doorway, we have the Bonnie spirit, which will try to make its way in. You must make sure the door stays shut, and the Chica spirit will try to approach you from behind the desk. Towards the end of the night, the Freddy spirit will try to grab you and hold on to you. You must mash the spacebar in order to shake them off. Once you reach 6 AM, the night abruptly ends.
Suddenly, you are plunged into darkness again. You could no longer feel the floor beneath your feet. You were free now. You looked back and saw those who had attacked you. They were desperately trying to grab you and drag you back, but they were too far away now. You no longer felt in danger. You felt a warm light on yourself and turned it to its source. You did not resist it and relaxed. Felt the warmth embrace you completely and you felt at peace.
And so, there you have the game's bad ending. Quite a different fate from that of the true ending. You get killed by the birthday rabbit, and his shadow drags you to what I assume is hell, along with the spirits of the children, before finally finding peace at the end of night 6, leaving the spirits of the children and the shadow behind. Luckily, this isn't the true ending, but a possibility of what happens if you don't follow the clues that the puppet leaves behind. In reality, you'll live to survive another day, and the children's spirits go on to rest, except for the puppet, obviously. Still, this ending is quite interesting, especially considering the involvement of the children's spirits. The bad ending assumes that the spirits never remember what happened to them, and more importantly, who did this to them. It's possible that this shadow spirit managed to manipulate them into attacking us, thinking we're the ones responsible for their deaths. This doesn't really explain who the shadow is though. All we know is that the shadow is a humanoid figure with rabbit ears and 3 distinct toes, which is similar to some animatronic designs, but not exact, and I don't have any favorable theories as to who it might be.
There is one detail I actually forgot to mention during my initial recording of this video. On night 6, if you look behind you, sometimes the TV monitor will actually show a person that is slowly transforming into the shadowy figure that we're fighting against. Based off their appearance and the fact that they have like some sort of casual business shirt on, it's implied that this is actually an adult spirit and possibly one of the workers or night guards of this pizzeria. But besides that, I don't have much else to go off of.
The bad ending also reveals the discovery of this new dead body inside the garbage bags, which might be present in the true ending, but we won't know because we never actually checked this room during the true ending. My best theory is that this is actually the night guard that's supposed to be watching over the place in night 6. That's why we never see them during the true ending. But the only thing that's kind of weird about that idea is that obviously in the bad ending, we hear a sound that leads us to discovering this dead body, and in the true ending that doesn't happen. So what's going on there, I'm not sure. It could just be a result of the endings being different, so it's kind of hard to tell if there was a night guard at all during night 6. One of those things that's just a little weird considering the timeline is kind of the same in that sense. But of course, even with all the questions with this ending, we still don't know any more about the puppet, who never saved us, or the candy clown, who's still a bit of a mystery. Now that we have both endings, I think one strong theory is that the night 6 night guard, if they do exist, would end up being the birthday rabbit killer, because it would explain the night guard's absence in both endings, yet the birthday rabbit killer is also in both endings. That would kind of make the most sense, unless that night guard ends up being the one who's in the garbage bag in the first place. But I'm not so sure, because for all we know, there's another child inside the garbage bag in the first place as well. But that's as much as I've been able to figure out, and for all we know, this might be something that's covered in a possible sequel, but I think on its own, it's a fitting conclusion to the story revolving the children and their killer. The children find peace, except for the puppet again, and we manage to survive another day. The killer's dead, they can't claim any more victims. But of course, with all that said, I hope you did enjoy. Once again, sorry, I've been recording this, and literally as I've been recording this, I've been getting more and more nasally. I could literally feel it, and it just, I hate the feeling. But of course, I hope you did enjoy. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Lets me know you're enjoying the content and want to see more of it. The game's in the description below as always. Great job, Tank Stuff. With that said, I'll see you in another video. Take care.